Daniel Ralston, how are you?
Good.
Now,
Good.
you, Daniel, just launched a podcast called The True Story of the Fake Zombies.
That is correct.
Now, this podcast, basically, I'm just going to tell people it's great. You check it out. You listen to it. You get it where you get podcasts, right?
Yeah, everywhere.
Yeah. Everywhere there's a podcast, this will be one of them. It's like, how many episodes is the full run going to be?
It's going to be 8 episodes. The first one's out now.
Yes.
And then 2 bonus episodes.
Okay. So 8 proper and 2 bonus.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard the first episode. I've known about this we're friends, and I've known about this for a long while. You have worked. This has been your life's work. I have never seen somebody. It's almost one of those things where it's just like, you're talking about, it's just like, I don't know if this thing's ever going to come out. It's still not out yet, but it's just like, no, that's what it takes to get these things out there sometimes. And I didn't think that. I knew it was going to come out at some point.
I wasn't sure at times, but I also,
I would say, when is it going to come out?
Yes. Yeah, it was a lot of work, and I sort of had a gap where I wrote this article about the fake zombies 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And then about a year and a half ago, some people got in touch with me and were like, do you want to turn this into a narrative podcast, tell the story? And then I spent about a year and a half digging as deep into it as I could and uncovering all the stuff that I didn't find in the article, and then getting to actually hear people's voices.
Yeah.
You know? So, yeah.
No, it's a wild journey, and it's a wild story. People, in a nutshell, the band The Zombies, popular in the second half of the 60s, numerous She's Not There, Tell Her No, Time of the Season, so many hits. The classic album Odyssey and Oracle. Of the time, it was possible, since there wasn't a whole lot of, it just wasn't you could get away with things. You could pull a fast one on people and you get away with it for much longer than you probably could now. Like if I was to put together like a fake Blink 182
Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Fake Red Hot Chili Peppers, it would take 4 minutes before I was arrested.
Yes, exactly.
But then people didn't know what people looked like. They didn't. It was blurry, or there was not nearly the amount of media that there is now. It was just the beginning of rock journalism, so there wasn't even like an entrenched history of things to be able to sniff out a fake. U.S. bands saw this as an opportunity, some people in the U.S., and then they were calling themselves the Zombies. That's
correct. There was a company in Bay City, Michigan called Delta Promotions.
Okay.
That they started a fake version of the Zombies, and it worked well enough that they actually started a second version at the same time and sent them off in opposite directions.
Okay.
And the first fake Zombies, they found them in Texas. For really good-looking, hard-living young blues musicians going around pretending to be the psychedelic, very proper zombies.
British, very British also.
Zombies were a 5-piece. The Texas Zombies only had 4 members, so they weren't being super careful.
Yeah.
And 2 of the guys in the Texas Zombies were Dusty Hill and Frank Beard from ZZ Top, pre-ZZ Top.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Where would Moving Sidewalks have been in that mix? Because that's Billy's Billy Gibbons band.
Yeah. So at the same time that he had Moving Sidewalks, Dusty and Frank played in American Blues.
Okay.
It's a band with Dusty's brother Rocky Hill.
Okay.
And then that was the band that immediately preceded. And we get into all this stuff in the podcast, but Dusty even played in a sort of a British Invasion cover band as a teenager, so he kind of knew the world of these British psychedelic music.
It's pretty wild how that stuff, there was like the Texas psych scene had a lot of cross-pollination with British artists. Like I remember like Robert Wyatt was in Soft Machine, and he would talk. He's just like, oh yeah, it's like Billy Gibbons. Like they were like pals.
Yeah.
And like it's just the strangest kind of cross pollination. Just music was the common thread.
Yeah. There's a ZZ Top song called "Heard It on the X," which is about this border blaster radio stations that they used to listen to coming across the border from Texas. And they would play, Tejano music, blues music, and British invasion stuff too. So it was all coming to them on these radio stations.
Wow.
And you can kind of hear that mix in all that kind of music too. And when I listen to American blues, like there's a few recordings out there, and it's way closer to the Zombies than it is to what would become ZZ Top later.
Sure, just because they were taking in all of these influences and kind of that's what their music was, this kind of amalgam of different things.
Yeah.
So when did you want to? Where was the starting point for this, and when did you decide to do this?
This whole project?
Yeah.
Well, the article, when I originally wrote it, I read a sentence in a biography of the Zombies that just said, an American group toured as the Zombies. And I was so fascinated with this idea that me and my friend Jeff Rickley wrote a screenplay based on just this idea, which you read years and years ago.
A long time ago, yeah.
And then after that, I kept following up on this idea.
And what year would that be that you read that sentence?
That was about 10 years ago.
Wow.
And in the process of trying to figure out what this was, deep in the Google search results, I found a guy who was in the band with Dusty and Frank.
Okay.
A blog post that he had written literally like 16 pages deep in the Google search results after fake zombies costumes. When I would search fake zombies, whatever.
Yeah, zombies not an easy thing to search.
It's not. And I found it, and he ended up being a very cantankerous guy, tough to deal with at times. And I talked to him for about a year. He sent me pictures from the road, from the tour. And then when it really came together was piecing it back to Bay City, Michigan, where the managers, where Delta Promotions put these fake bands together. And the podcast really focused a lot on the managers and what they were doing and all the different fake groups that they put together.
Okay. Because it's a really wild, it takes like, well, because the concept of a fraud, this is like straight up fraud.
Yeah. This was like the Wild West for music. And I think that you're right. Like there was no music press until things like Rolling Stone come along, 69, 70. Yeah. All you get is what you get from the band.
Yes.
The liner notes, a fan club maybe.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden things become news, and this story caught the attention of Rolling Stone, and that's a big part of it. And actually, the author who wrote about the fake zombies back in 1970 is Ben Fong Torres, who's a character in Almost Famous. He's like one of the most famous music writers ever, and he's in the first episode telling us about writing about the fake zombies, but we literally had to remind him that it happened 50 plus years ago.
Because he was knocking out article
He said,
article.
like literally, he wrote 4 or 5 articles a week.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, so you got the bug, like, wow, what is that? You start doing the research. When did you realize that this ran deeper than maybe on first look you thought it would go?
Sure. People kept saying, whenever I would talk to anybody about this, I'd be like, I'm just like really fascinated by this idea. And people would immediately say, yeah, it sounds like a movie. Like it just has this element. It's like these younger guys with these older managers sending them out on the road. And a lot of these younger bands, they didn't realize that they were perpetrating a fraud. They were told Delta Promotions owns the American rights to the Zombies music.
Okay.
This is good. They also asked these younger bands to fake British accents, which probably was a big tip off that maybe there was something wrong.
Sure. When you get a 19-year-old from Texas and tell him it's like, you're from England now.
Yeah.
And even though you've never met anyone from England, now you are from England.
Yeah. And I'm sure that there were times where they ran into real British people. And eventually, we talk about it in the first episode, the real zombies got a hold of this management company. And the manager told Chris White, the bassist in the Zombies, we started this Zombies in tribute to Colin Blunstone, the singer in the Zombies who died in a car accident. He's still alive and still performing now.
Currently still alive.
Yes.
Let alone in 1970.
Yes.
He was. Yeah, it's really, there is something charming about the sneakiness of something like this.
Yeah.
There's like a roguish quality where you're kind of like, it's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You're lying, but you're also like, it's kind of funny too.
And there were no real zombies at the time. The band had sort of broken up.
Mm-hmm.
So you really,
Mm-hmm.
if somebody really wanted to go hear Time of the Season live, this was the only way you were going to get to do it in America. And we talk about it. There were reviews that we found in local papers, some very kind, some basically calling out what was happening right in front of them.
Like seeing through it.
And it was really fun to track that too. And also going back and finding the old Rolling Stones stories. There are actually a few of them.
Okay.
And reading these outrageous quotes from the Delta Promotions people about how they insisted they were doing everything on the level.
Mm-hmm.
And, I should mention also that the real zombies are in the podcast. They're in an episode coming later in the series. And it was really great to get to talk to them about this very strange chapter that they knew nothing about until we started working on this.
Because at that point, the real zombies are dealing with the collapse and dissolution of the zombies.
Yeah.
And figuring out what's next for them. It's just like they're in such a different place.
Yeah.
Just geographically and career-wise than what these bands were presenting as. Just like, yeah, we're just touring around as the zombies are on tour.
Yeah, there's a couple like deep ironies in it. One being that the real zombies broke up because their album Odyssey and Oracle, which now regularly makes like best album of all time lists, it was a total flop when it came out. They broke up because nobody cared about it. They got very lucky that the third single they released in America, Time of the Season, thanks to Al Cooper, who was plays on Bob Dylan's records, played on some Rolling Stones records, music producer. He insisted to their label, you have to release Time of the Season as a single. It caught on one radio station, I think in Idaho.
Wow.
And from there, it spread. And this void, this hit song with no band to tour it, is where Delta Promotions gets the idea to send these zombies out on the road.
Sure. There's a real opportunity to work a hit single on the road. Yeah. Since there's no actual zombies anymore.
And it's, a little, I think it was tough for the band. The real zombies had to get day jobs. They were done. Outside of the two guys who wrote the songs, everybody else moved on to day jobs.
Wow.
And we talk about that with Colin Blunstone in the podcast. But the fake zombies were making money on the road. And there were stories I heard from their opening act, who's in an episode. They were hiring limousines. They're getting paid $500 a night not to play a show, like a show that got canceled. Their manager was just handing them money.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really wild.
Yeah. I could go for one of those. We're going to pay you, but you don't have to do the thing.
That would be the best. Yeah.
If anyone out there knows of one of these, this is the kind of job I want. One of those jobs you hear people talk about where it's just like, I'm at a company. They don't even know I'm here anymore, but I get paid. Like I just show up and watch a movie. Like I watch 2 movies a day at my desk, and they haven't noticed that I'm here. I'm getting paid every week. I would like one of those jobs, please, where finally, and I'll deal with it when finally they just go like, hey, we're letting you go. Like whenever the company has to do layoffs, it's just like, of course I'd be the first one fired. Yeah. I'm okay riding that ride with that point up to that point.
Well, I would say if you have one of those jobs out there and you get to sit at a desk, like, please don't take it for granted. You are so lucky.
Yes. No, you need to take it. Yeah. Take full advantage. You're in the good old days right then. If you currently have one of those jobs, these are the good old days. you'll look back and you'll go, boy, that was a good time. I didn't work at all.
Yeah.
For one of these major companies, it's just something like, oh, I'm working at Spotify or something like that.
Yeah.
And they just nobody looked down that hall to see that there's 8 of us.
Yeah, you're just messaging with your friend who works next to you all day. That's just your whole job.
Just keep our heads down. You just every day you scan in and you're just hoping it's not the day where somebody just goes, hey, we actually need to talk to you for a second. Hey, the boss wants to talk to the 8 of you. You're fired today.
You see a bar graph and everybody else is way up high and you're down here.
Yeah, exactly.
We were trying to hit some numbers.
Yeah, we're trying to track your productivity. It's well, good luck with that because I do nothing here.